So it is time to fit my 54-inch deck to my John Deere 425, from which I've just removed the snowblower. And before I fit the deck, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to give it a good clean because, so I've just popped the screws on these pulley covers. One there, then the one over here. There's 4 screws on each. And by the way, this is the deck for the 425 that is set up for the MC519 vacuum and collection system. So that deck there is the same 54-inch deck, but that's the one for my 445. And quite frankly, I seldom use that now because I keep the 445 with a little buck loader on it and the ag tires on it most of the time. And I just use the 425 for mowing the lawns and the meadow and the trails. So first of all, I've got to give it a good clean, as you can see. Then I'm going to give the Zerk fittings on the pulleys and on the UJs, the universal joints here, and on the slide, a little grease with my grease gun. The belt I'm going to change, you change that by releasing this spring here, pulling that spring off. I normally put a piece of rope around there, pull it, then it releases the tension here and the belt comes off. It does have a little damage on this belt. There's a notch out of it there. I haven't got a new belt to hand, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that belt off of the 445 deck because I remember fitting that and then after it was used just a few times with that new belt on, I stopped using it when I got the 425. So I know that belt is good, it looks perfect. So I'm going to put that belt on from there, save a couple of dollars and save some time getting one right now. And I'll put that one over on here. I'm not going to touch the gearbox. This gearbox, they're pretty much sealed. There is a screw, I think that's the screw there that you unscrew. It's a single empty and fill screw there. I honestly don't know how often you're meant to change the oil on those gearboxes. If anybody knows, I'd love to hear what the recommended service intervals are for that gearbox. But I'm not going to touch it right now. I'm not going to start playing around emptying it. And but if you know, it's running smooth. I just ran it, you know, moved it with my hand, and there's no noise coming from it or anything like that. So that's what I'm going to do now. Then when that's all done, the belt is on. I'm going to lift it up with my bucket loader, and then I'm going to flip it over and sharpen the blades, give a quick sharpen to the blades. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised as to how much debris had collected underneath those covers and around the pulley wheels and everything. So I had to do a lot of scraping and vacuuming with my trusty Ryobi cordless vacuum, shop vacuum here. And it's pretty clean, the paint is good. It's amazing, it always amazes me how John Deere paint jobs are pretty good. When you think there's probably 1,100 hours on here over much more than 20 years of use. And on this deck, because all this truck is really being used for is mowing and obviously some snow blowing, and that's the only area where the paint has broken up. Everywhere else the paint is very good. So I removed that spring. I pointed out I always use a bit of paracord, wrap around it and give it a good pull. That comes off, so that frees up this wheel here. The thing I did not mention, that to remove the belt or to put in a new belt, you need to remove this wheel here, okay, which is bolted in that location, sits on this little turret underneath it here. So I took that wheel out, and then you have to remove this as well. There's a bolt there, you can see it, and there's another nut underneath the deck to get that off. And then this, when that's all freed, you can lower the belt underneath the gearbox pulley there and get it out, and then put the new one in. Now, having said that, I said I was going to remove the belt from that deck and put it over here. That seems, I had second thoughts about that, because that deck I might want to use it for doing some rough mowing with the 445 and the ag tires on the trails and that in the summer. So I don't want to start having to put another belt on that. It's as I say, almost new belt on there. So I'm going to leave that. I've ordered another belt, which will be coming. And when I had a good look at this belt, apart from that one notch that I noticed, the belt is in pretty good shape. There's no cracking on it or anything. So I'm going to put this one back on, just leave it on and have a new one on standby. Because I think there's probably a lot of hours left on this one. It really doesn't need replacing. But just so that anybody can understand, you need to take off this pulley wheel here just by undoing that bolt, and this arm here. This arm comes off when you release. There's a little underneath here somewhere. There's a yellow, you will probably notice on yours, there's a yellow cap that sits on top of there. You pull that off, then you have access to that bolt there. Okay, using my little grease gun, I greased up those 6 grease points that I pointed out on the 3 main blade pulleys and on the shaft and UJ mechanism. So what I'm going to do now, lift this out, turn it over, scrape the underside and give the blades a quick sharpen. Just got the deck lifted off. As you can see, I put the belt back in place. It's worth always, obviously, needless to say, taking a picture before you remove the belt when you're replacing it, because it's not obvious once you've got it off, remembering exactly how it goes back on. I happen to have done it a couple of times. I also have the other deck sitting right next to me to follow, but once you've pulled that belt off, getting it back on is not easy. Anyway, that's the pattern. Just bear that in mind. If you don't have a picture or you can't take a picture, maybe take a screen capture of this. But there you are. That's all ready to be covered over. The one thing I do have to do now is just retighten that bolt there on that pivot arm, because the only way you can do that is to get a wrench on that bolt underneath there. Okay, otherwise it'll just turn. You can see that the underside of the deck is clean. I had cleaned it before putting it away in the fall. So now with my little angle grinder, cordless angle grinder, I'm going to put the deck down and then just run an edge along each side. I'm not claiming I'm going to give you a perfect cut when the blades are sharpened this way, but well good enough for my purposes in terms of keeping a decent lawn and also being able to do meadow cutting and that sort of thing. I find if I run the angle grinder without taking the blades off, because that's another one of those jobs where I normally find I have to put heat on those bolts to get those blades off. So all I normally do is just what I'm about to do now, which is just run the angle grinder along those edges there. And the other thing I would point out about greasing, if you have these original wheels on your deck, for instance on my 445, I changed the wheels, I replaced them because they were coming apart a few years ago, and I put 2 wheels on. They're exactly the same wheel in size and proportion and everything, but they don't have grease fittings on them. These ones, let me show you. It's probably best to show you this one, it'll be easier in the light. Well, actually the grease fitting is gone from this one. Ho ho. So there is a Zerk fitting that goes in these. This one clearly has come off, but I think the other 3 wheels have them, and I'm going to just give those a squirt of grease. But these again, the original wheels with the yellow hubs and the black rubber around them, I found that this breaks up. Whereas with these solid wheels, which is what I put on here, not only were they a lot less money than buying the original wheels, they are still John Deere wheels by the way, but I find them a lot more robust. Okay, so that's a very quick and easy job once you've got access to the underside of the deck. And then you can see there, it's about, you want to get the angle just so. Don't go too aggressive with your grinding wheel, just run it up and down, say 10 seconds or so, smoothly up and down, a few passes. And you can also, if you get the blade in the right place, you can come underneath here as well, which is where the real cut side is on there. And you just run underneath there and then just keep feeding it until you get just a reasonable cutting edge there. Again, those blades were in pretty good shape anyway, which is surprising considering all the rough cutting I do as well as lawn cutting. So okay, that's a quick job. You don't have to take them off, you just need a little angle grinder, and that'll do me for most of the season. If I knock them out too badly, then I'll just flip the deck again and do this again, but normally that lasts me a season. The covers are now back on the deck. I've got it alongside the 425. Before installing, or for that matter removing the deck, you need to make sure your wheels are in the sideways position. There's only one height that you have those set at. There's one set of holes, so you just drop the wheels into that position so you can push it under. I'm doing this on lawn. Ideally, if you're on a flat concrete surface or hard top, it's much easier, but this isn't too bad. You bring your tractor alongside, or bring it alongside the tractor. You want to have, now the left side of the deck, I'm standing behind the deck, the left side of the deck is slightly narrower than the output side, the right side of the deck. You want to be passing it through from the narrower side, so you're passing it through on the right side of the tractor, and start off with your wheels turned. Now this is my 425 that it's going on. The same process is exactly identical for a 445 or a 455. The one thing I would say about this 425, if you're looking at it and saying, apart from the hardtop, there's something different about that as well, and that is that I have the bigger tires on here. If you look at my other videos, you'll know I switched up the tires so that the wheel size on this is the same size as a 445 or a 455. Essentially, those rear wheels on there 26-inch diameter instead of 23-inch diameter. That's just tire difference, which means I've got an inch and a half more ground clearance on this than on a regular 425. So that's why it may look a little different. And it probably gives me a little easier clearance underneath there when I'm putting the deck under, but it doesn't make a huge difference in terms of the process. The process is exactly the same. Okay, and the other thing I just had to do with this tractor was to get underneath, take the weights off so I can get underneath there, get my arm under, and take the prop shaft out, the drive shaft that goes all the way underneath from the PTO at the back to the front for the snowblower. So that's now been removed. I can now push the deck underneath. I have the yoke ready to fit at the front there, so let's see how we go. So the deck rolled under there very easily. The one thing you want to do before pushing it through is to make sure that the drive shaft coupling, the universal, is turned up and on top of the deck. They're just hanging over the deck so it doesn't get all gouged up on the dirt when it's going under. And also make sure that your pins, the two pins, one either side of the lift arms, is in the locked open position, pulled out in other words, and turned so they stay open. Then the way I find it best to get position right, fore and aft and also side to side, I put the yoke underneath. I don't lock the yoke up at this stage, but by putting the yoke in position before you actually pull it right up and put it into lock, by making sure that's positioned, the deck is positioned according to the yoke, you'll pretty much know you're going to be able to drop your arms down and they're going to be in a good position. So now I'm going to start up and drop down the arms. So before lowering the arms, you make sure they're wound into the very lowest cutting position. Then start up, lower the arms, and if you're in a reasonably good position, they should drop straight down in between there, and they have in this case. I go, okay, because the yoke gave me that guidance in the first place. The other thing you want to do is make sure before you drop the arms that the drive shaft coupler is pulled back and out of the way and ready to couple up onto the PTO, so it's not in the way when the arm comes down. So now I can put the pins in, lock up the yoke, and then do the coupling. So the lift arm pins are locked in place on both sides. Here's the yoke at the front. I can now just lock this up into position here with the pin. Good. So that's in. Now all I need to do is go around, get under the back, and hook up the coupling. Not easy, but normally when you've done it a few times, you kind of can feel your way easily enough. That drive shaft coupling for the mower deck, I got my arm under there and it slipped in beautifully first time. I must be getting good at this, or I got lucky, I don't know, because often I've struggled to get that coupling. I probably had it nicely greased this time more than I would normally do, and it just slipped straight over and coupled up beautifully. Obviously now the wheels are in my normal cutting position, and she's all set to go. Now I can cut grass. So Hopefully if you found this little video interesting and helpful, please give me a like, and better still, if you like my videos, please subscribe. It's free, and that way you get to hear about all my videos. I've got about 50 of them up on these tractors and implements and that sort of thing. But 2020 mowing season has arrived, and the grass is beginning to grow here. I'll be cutting for the next month or so without a catch system, collection system, and then in about a month I'll be hooking up my MC519 collection system. So anyway, thanks for looking, have a wonderful day, and please stay safe.